Okay. Thank you all for joining this evening. My name is Joel. I'm FZY's Executive Director. I'm actually based in Israel, live in Israel. I've been here for the last 15 years, and I've been working for either FZY or our sister youth movement, Young Judea, for the last 20 plus years, and for the last 8 years or so as Executive Director of FZY. And I also was a participant on the FZY Year Course program back in the late 1990s and worked directly on the program for 6 years in a variety of different roles in from around 2008 to 2014. Also joining on the call tonight is Alex. Alex is an FZY movement worker, and it's one of her responsibilities is there to kind of like liaise with families and with participants pre-going on the program and when they're on the year course program itself. That's who we are. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to share my screen, and we will crack on with a presentation. What I would ask is like that if anyone, because there's just a small number of people here, if there are people that have questions at any point, feel free to jump in and ask. But we'll also give time at the end of the presentation for people which have questions then as well. So
Joel, we can't hear you.
hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Hopefully there won't be any technical problems. Okay, so fine. So before I'm only going to take like a couple of minutes on this before we delve directly into the program itself. But I guess the first question is why even take a gap year? So there are many reasons why to do. This is actually just taken off the National Career Service. And if you ask employers and people that employ people, they're often looking for people that have something which stands them out from others from their CV. And what generally employers say, and the National Career Service here says, is that as long as you're doing something meaningful in your gap year, then it's something important to be doing, and it's something that you should be doing because it really does stand you out from other people. And what they talk about meaningful is they're talking about things like learning as another language, volunteering, exploring a different culture. Those types of things are seen as very beneficial when it comes to employers. If obviously you're spending a gap year sitting on a beach and doing things like that, then that's obviously not necessarily something that employers are looking for. But it's not just also employers that are looking for these things. It's also universities. This is, this excerpt here is taken from the UCAS website. And again, they're basically talking about if you're doing something productive during your gap year, it's really valuable and it can really stand you out from other applicants who are applying to universities. And here again are just a few excerpts from a few different universities. And almost all universities look at gap years as a positive thing. There are a few exceptions where there are some specific courses and some specific universities which would generally like you to go straight into that course straight from school. But the vast majority of universities, if you're doing something while you're doing something meaningful, then that's what it really kind of like sets you up. Stands you out from other people who may be applying to the program to university at the same time, and B kind of like means that going in as a first year to university, you're more prepared for student life, for independent living, and ready for that challenge of university. Okay, so that's kind of like why a gap year, why you should take a gap year. I want to take most of the rest of the rest of this time we have together to explain why FZY Year Course. Because FZY Year Course really is a program which ticks all those boxes which those future employers and universities will be looking for. So let's have a look at this screen for a couple of minutes. This is an overview of what the program looks like, what it looks like at the moment, what we expect it to look like for next year. So before I delve into each of these things, a small overview. So currently on the year course program, and we expect similar numbers next year. There's around 180 people on the program. That 180 people is split between FZY participants coming from the UK, and occasionally we have some people from Europe, and our sister youth movement for Young Judea from America. They have the same similar values, ideology, etc. as us. They're based in America. And so between the two organizations, between FZY and Young Judea, there are approximately 180, I think there's about 185 people on the program this year. And those 185 people are split almost, are split half-half. Half of the group will start their program in Tel Aviv, while the other half will start their program in Jerusalem, and then halfway through they will switch around. What we do is we make sure and we keep all of the FZY participants in the same group together, the same section together, because there are more Americans which come on the program, and it's important for us to make sure that the Brits who come on the program have got, people who more from their own culture who are there with them. We for the last several years, and what we're expecting again next year is that for the group which will contain the British FZY participants will start in Tel Aviv, and that program, that Tel Aviv program, which we'll delve into in a minute, will start. The program starts around the 1st of September and through to the end of December, lining up with normally the Christmas New Year holiday. Tel Aviv will be the center of that program with the theme of volunteering mainly. Then throughout the month of January or so, there's a section called Zman Yachad, when actually both groups, the one starting in Tel Aviv and the one starting in Jerusalem, will come together, and we'll have some different options during that semester, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And then the FZY participants around beginning to middle of February, it all depends exactly on dates of like Jewish holidays and things like that year to year. But around beginning to middle of February, the group will then move to Jerusalem, where they'll stay till the end of the year, which is normally around the middle of May. And the focus of that semester is more of it's a study-based semester. So that's an overview of the year. And what I'm going to do now is we're going to actually, just before we delve into the first semester, I want us to look at the two different main bases that we have, the Tel Aviv base and the Jerusalem base. Because they're very different. I say very different. It's all about communal living, but the focus of that communal living is a little bit different. So in Tel Aviv, we have our main campus there is called Beit Hillel. For those of you that know the Tel Aviv area, it is about a 3-minute walk from Sarona, Sarona neighborhood, Sarona market, about a 5-6 minute walk to the FZY center, like the big shopping center and main train station in Tel Aviv. It's in a very central location. That campus holds around 65 or so people. There is an overflow campus, but we make sure, again, the same as we keep all of the FZY British people together in the same semester, in the same section, we also keep them together on the same campus. So the FZY participants have always stayed in this Beit Hillel campus. The campus actually has 3 floors, and each floor there's around roughly 20 people that can sleep in rooms, dorm rooms of around 3 or 4 people sleeping in each room, with an ensuite bathroom there. And on each floor, as I said, which houses around 20 or so people, there's a kitchen. You can see on the second picture down on the left, there's a typical what a typical kitchen will look like, or at least part of what a kitchen will look like. We provide in the kitchen. There's ovens, there's stoves, there's fridges, there's freezers, there's everything that you need. We provide them with pots, pans, cutlery, plates, bowls, everything that participants may need in order to be able to cook for themselves. And this is like one of the key fundamental elements of this part of the program, is about the independent living, is about the year courses learning how to shop for themselves, to cook for themselves, to clean up after themselves. It's a whole piece about them living independently and working, something which they will likely be doing when they head off to university or heading, leaving the family home. But to be able to do this in this kind of like semi-protected environment where there are madrichim around, where there are staff around who will be able to help and assist and make sure that nothing is going wrong with that process. But that's a big part of this Tel Aviv semester. Is that we provide the participants at the beginning of every week or every couple of weeks. We provide them with a basket of food. It's all of like the basics. So it'll be some fruits and vegetables. There'll be some eggs and cheese and dairy products in there. There'll be some dry goods like pastas and cereals, etc. And there will also be some cleaning equipment and things like that. What we provide is not enough for them necessarily to be able to be 100% catered, because we feel it's important for them to also be able to do the budgeting element and the shopping element as well. But it's enough for it to be like semi catered for. And then participants, the idea is that the participants will work together and they'll decide what they want to, a menu for themselves, what they want to cook, and they will go to the shops or order online whatever they see is best for them, and top up the food and cook for themselves, etc. Also on the campus, which is there's a gallery area, which is like there's a mezzanine area between the first and the second floor, which has got a large hall. I think you can see that in like the third picture down on the left there, where some of the time it's used as a classroom where we will give certain there'll be like Hebrew language classes or informal education, which some of the staff will be running. Other times when it's not like that, the chairs fold in and there's couches there. So it's an area where the year courses can chill and hang out together as well. There's also, as you can see on the top picture there's a really nice rooftop garden, which is available for the year courses to hang out and use as well. And like, as I said, like the actual location is very, very central in Tel Aviv. And there are about 2 or 3 year course madrachim, year course staff who live in the campus with them. And our central year course offices are a 2-minute walk away, like from the campus. So they are well looked after by our staff, whilst they have that independence there themselves, to be living by themselves and to be looking after themselves in terms of food and cleaning and things like that. So that's our campus in Tel Aviv. If we move over to the campus in Jerusalem, it's a little bit different. There are certain things which are very similar in terms of they will still be sharing rooms of around 3 or 4 people to a room, with ensuite facilities there. The neighborhood that they're in, for those of you, they're staying in a campus called Kiryat Moriah. Some of you may be aware of it. It's been around for a very long time, although they have every few years they are redoing the living accommodations and some of the accommodations there. So I mean, I know that from when I was on these programs in the late 1990s, the accommodation is much better than it was then. But it's in the Amon HaNatziv neighborhood, which is in South Jerusalem, not far from a Tayela, like a lookout point where you can see over like the old city of Jerusalem and parts of Jerusalem. But unlike in Tel Aviv, where it's all about cooking and cleaning for themselves, here there is 3 meals which are provided a day in the dining room there: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. There is, in addition to that, there's a cafe there. People want to, would prefer from time to time to eat some different food or to buy some snacks and things there. That is also there on the site. There are several sports facilities there. There's a basketball court. There's a small football pitch which is there. As you can see on the bottom left-hand picture, that's like there's lots of like outdoor green spaces there, as well for the year courses just to be able to chill and hang out outside and things like that. There are several. I mean, there's probably about 40 or so different classrooms in this building, like smart classrooms, because this is the study element of the program while they're based in Jerusalem. So there are classrooms there which they can go into and where the education on this semester will be taking place. In addition to that, there are office. We have a sub like a smaller year course office which is based in on this campus. But the Jewish Agency and many other like Jewish organizations also have their offices here on the campus, and there are other programs in addition to the FZY Year Course program, which also run off of this campus. So there will be other groups and other people their own age, which will be there living on the campus with them at the same time. So that's kind of like the overview of the two different campuses and the two different bases of where they are. We'll delve now into the actual Tel Aviv semester and what what they do during this time. So there are four different options, four different tracks for the year courses to choose, and they don't need to make if they're making the choice over the coming weeks to go on year course or not, they don't need to make a decision about which track they want to do at this time. That this normally comes in like the couple of months before the program begins is where they need to really like firm up what they want to do. But I'm going to talk you through what the four different options are. So two of them are volunteering and internship. They're similar in terms of like their schedule, but they're slightly different in terms of the way that their days are being run. So for both of these tracks, 3.5 days of the 5-week, sorry, 3.5 days of the 5-day week, 5-day working week, will be either in a volunteer placement or in an internship. And we have, I think, throughout a year, there are something like 700 different people, not both on the year course programs and on some other programs that we run in conjunction with Young Judea. There are about 700 different people that come in and have a volunteer or an internship placement. So we work with hundreds of different organizations, businesses, companies of lots of different descriptions. So therefore, as much as possible, what we try to do is to tailor the desires of a year course participant to the options that we have. So it may lots of some participants may want to work with children, and we can set them up in a school helping to teach English. People may want to work with elderly people, and they can go and work in an old age home. People may want to work with people with people with special needs, and there are like either there are both like kindergartens and NGOs that work with people with special needs that we can like set our year courses up to work in there. People may prefer not to really work with people and actually to be working in the environment, and there are lots of different options there as well, from they're like community farms to other things like that, which are working in those areas where we can do that. People may want to choose to volunteer with animals, so we have placements with things like the SPCA, where they can go and they can like look after dogs and other animals whilst they're looking to be rehomed. There are lots of people who choose wanting to work in like specific non-profit, non-governmental organizations. For example, we've had people work in the Tel Aviv Rape Crisis Prevention Center. We've had people work in LGBTQ like organizations helping to organize either fundraising projects for these organizations, or to put on like helping to put on like the Pride Parade, which is huge in Tel Aviv, like come towards the summertime. So there are loads of different options there, and for like they are like more the volunteer style options. But there are some people that want to also take this time on their gap year to try out or to explore a field which they think they may want to work in when they, after they graduate or when they get into the working world. So we have lots of links with different businesses, whether that's finance, in law, in high tech, in things like the theatre world and the arts world and things like that. So what generally happens is, like, as I said, 3.5 days a week will be in either a volunteering or an internship placement. And what will happen is like a month or two before the program begins, everyone will have a meeting with our volunteer and internship coordinator. They'll talk through what it is that they want to get out of out of that semester. The volunteer and internship coordinator will then will share some of the different options which they think may fit for the year course participants, and they'll be matched up and they'll be put in a place. And so then every week, 3.5 days a week, they'll head to one of these placements and they'll work or volunteer there. to supplement the rest of that time for the rest of the days. One of the days is a Sior day, Sior meaning like a trip. And so what we try to do is normally I think it's on every Wednesday every week, whilst in Tel Aviv. Everyone who volunteers or is an internship will go and explore a different place in Tel Aviv or a different place in Israel, with a tour guide with the staff, so that they can get to see different communities, get to explore like Israeli society and to see things and engage with Israel in a way that maybe they haven't done so before. So that's another day. And the other half day is made up by things to do like informal education. We normally run a class called service learning, which looks at the value of volunteering and also helps our year courses to be better volunteers or better workers in an internship. And also twice a week for an hour, hour and a half each time, there is a Hebrew Ulpan as well, to help help improve the year courses Hebrew skills so that when they're out and about volunteering or in an internship, they're better able to communicate, or when they're going out shopping for their food, they're better able to get around. So that's kind of like how that week is built up. 3.5 days volunteering or in an internship, a day of a trip, and the other half day is made up of some informal education and Hebrew Ulpan learning. So they're two of the four options for this Tel Aviv semester. There's three options here. I'm going to go into two of them in a little bit more detail, and one of them is slightly less, because it's not always available every year. So I don't really want to kind of like delve into it too much and promise anything that may not be there. But the two options I'm going to go into a bit more detail are Magen David Adom and Malva. Magen David Adom is the Israeli paramedic service. And the way that this program works is that for 10 days, year courses who are on this track will go and be trained up to be first aid. I've just forgotten the exact technical term, but basically it's like an advanced first aid course that they need to go through. They at the end it's a very intense course. And after the 10 days, they need to pass two exams, a theory exam and a practical exam. First aid responders, that's what they trained up to be. There we go, remembered. So they need to pass a theory and a practical exam. If they unfortunately fail one or both of those exams, they do get a second chance to take it, but no more than a second chance. And once they and 99.9% of the time, once they have passed those courses, they will then be assigned to a Magen David Adom station in Tel Aviv or the one of the suburbs of Tel Aviv, one of the neighboring towns around Tel Aviv. When there, what happens is they will then need to work 4 shifts a week. They can pick and choose what shifts they work based on what they would like to do and the need of the Magen David Adom stations. But there are 3 different types of shift. There's a morning shift, which is 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. There's the afternoon evening shift, which is 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. And there's the night shift, which is 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. And what happens is they need to go to the Magen David Adom station. They need to get there in time for the start of their shift. And then they are there. And when a call comes out for an ambulance, they will get onto the ambulance with the 1 or 2 paramedics who will be there, and they'll go with them to the calls, and they will help and support the paramedics there in any way that they're needed. So a few things to say about this. Number one, like we don't put when we can't say and we don't say to Magen David Adom, there are certain calls that our year courses can't go to. Therefore, like they will go and probably see some very difficult and some very challenging things, whether that's car crashes, whether that's seeing, elderly people, in a rundown home, whatever that is, they will probably see and be faced with some very difficult things and challenging sites. We have had year courses almost every year who have to do things like CPR. And sometimes they are successful in actually saving someone's life, and sometimes, unfortunately, they are not. And unfortunately, people do pass away, and they may see that. And we've had year courses which have helped to deliver babies before. We have had year courses which have seen some and have been a part of some amazing, incredible things, and really helping to save lives. And we've had year courses who at the same time have been like very very challenged, and it's been very difficult for some of the things they see. So it's something like, if people are going to choose this option, it's just something for year courses to be aware of, that they need to be the right type of person to be able to deal with the emotional challenges which come with this in this option. The other thing to say about this option is that we don't, they don't know what any given day looks like. And what I mean by that is, like, they could be in the paramedic station, and they could be there for that 8 hour shift, and maybe not get any calls at all, or maybe only one call, which is, generally a good thing. It means there are people in that area which don't need paramedic support. But that could also be difficult, and that could be a bit of a boring day for that year courser. But there could also be times where year courses are just not in the paramedic station at all. They get called out, a minute after they get to on their shift. And even, 5 minutes before the end of their shift, they may get a call, and then, all of a sudden their shift doesn't end in 5 minutes time. It ends 2 hours late, because by the time they've got to their call and helped that person and taken them to the hospital and then come back to their base, it may mean that their 8 hour shift has turned into a 10 hour shift. So some of these things that just need to be, year courses need to be aware about. They need to be able to deal with, like, some of these changes and some of these things. And at the same time as they're doing this, they'll be living on the same campus with everyone else in Beit Hillel and the Tel Aviv campus, but their schedule may not line up exactly. The year courses can choose to, as I said, to build their schedule, their shifts in the way that they'd like, and sometimes they can match it up with some of the year course scheduling. Sometimes they can't. Sometimes they can go on these day trips out, these once a week CRM, which happen, and some weeks they can't. And that's just something that they need to be aware of if they're choosing this option. The Malva option is an 8-week army simulation program. The idea of this program is to try and let the year courses to understand what it's like for their Israeli peers who are age 18. Most 18-year-olds in Israel go into the army, So it's to help them to understand what their Israeli peers will be going through, and to understand the Israeli army and the Israeli army system a little bit more. This program is based not in Tel Aviv. This program is based in Sde Boker, which is in the desert in the south, the Negev in the south. And what happens is they spend 11 days on base, and then they come home back to Tel Aviv, where they have their room in Tel Aviv. They'll come back there for 3 days, and then they'll go back for 11 days, and then come back for a 3-day weekend. So every other weekend is they're on base. They don't have quite as much free time and than the rest of the year courses do, if they choose this option. And to be honest, like, it's the first week or two is very, very difficult for the year courses, because each week is themed in a different way. The first week is all about army discipline. It's about when your commander says something in the army, that you have to follow their instructions. And so the way that they teach that and drill that in is really by making year courses do very mundane things, which may be standing around in a het formation, in a specific, standing to attention in a specific shape for like 30 minutes. And then the commander will say, you have 30 seconds to get over there, where they'll point somewhere, to be standing in the formation again. And if they're not there within that 30 seconds, then they'll be given punishments. Or if during that time they're standing in that formation, they move, they do things that they shouldn't, they'll get punishments. But that's really the first week. And the end of the first week, a lot of year courses finding it challenging and difficult, and often they want to leave. But once they get through that first week, things change a lot. They then kind of like really get into kind of like the meat of kind of like what this program is. So they will have like Northern Week, Jerusalem Week, where they'll go to different places in Israel, and they will understand about the different wars which have happened that Israel have fought. Will understand. They'll go to places like you can see in the picture here. They'll go to places like the West Mall, the Kotel, or Yad Vashem, and places like that, and understand like Israeli history through the eyes of security and defense and the Israeli army. There will be a week which is like camouflage week, where they'll be out about in the fields a lot more in camouflage, eating army rations, because they'll have a few nights without going back to their base. They will have navigation week where they'll learn how to use a compass and navigate themselves around. They'll have sports week, which is a little bit more physical. So there are different weeks, and each week kind of like takes a different aspect of the IDF, of the army, and teaches them that the whole time whilst they're there in base. They will have an army uniform. They will have a gun that they will have with them the whole time. The gun is not an operable gun. There is no shooting pin, and the tip of it is cemented, so there is no way to actually use this gun as an actual weapon. But it's to kind of like teach the year courses that what it's like to be an 18-year-old Israeli who during, when they're in the army, they have to take that gun with them everywhere, and so it's just kind of like to try to put them in that mindset of what it would be like to be in the army. Be aware they are not in the army. At no point are they in the army. At no point can they be called up. Can there's anything like that at all. They're in a safe place, in an educational army base in the desert. And that is their base, but it's just to kind of like just for them to get that understanding. So there are the options. Both the Magen David Adom and Malva options are around 8-week options, where obviously this semester is closer to 4 months. So after normally both Malva and Magen David Adom don't start until after the Chagim period is over, until after until it's finished with Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. So depending on the year, that date changes slightly year to year. But in that period of time before that, as well as doing, being involved with all of the Chagim, which everyone else will be involved in, and the programming we put together there. Whilst the other year courses are out there volunteering or having internships, we build programming for them, which is again themed around like the army or themed around health and medicine, which kind of like prepares them and gets them ready for the experience and the main experience they'll have that semester. And again, if there's any time left, if there's a 1, 2, 3 weeks left at the end of the semester, again, we'll set them up with some volunteer options, some volunteer programming, so they will have that opportunity to do that as well. So they're the 4 main options which are available during that Tel Aviv semester. And the other option, which potentially may be there, and if it is, it will only be there for a handful of people who really want this. There may be an opportunity to go to Kibbutz Keturah, which is all the way down south in Israel. It's about half an hour away from Eilat. To live on a kibbutz and to live and volunteer on a kibbutz. I'm not going to really delve into that, because it's, as I said, it's the very high chance that it won't happen, and if it does, it's really for a handful of people. But if we will be able to offer that option nearer a couple of months before year course. We'll go into that option in a little bit more detail with participants and with families, so they can explore that. But if you're looking for a kibbutz experience, and that's the reason why you want to take a gap year in Israel, then this, I wouldn't rely on that on this necessarily on this program. So this basically takes us up until towards the end of December. At that point, there is around a 10-day break from the program. What that means is like the accommodation they have in Tel Aviv is there. That's their home. They're still there. Our staff are still around. They're still there, but there's just no specific programming. So that's a time where often year courses go back home to see family. Often some families come out to Israel to visit their year courses. And if they're for families which neither of those options are happening, which there's also a lot of those as well, it's a time for the year courses to explore Israel themselves and to go and see parts of Israel they'd like to explore. I will touch a little bit later onto things like safety and security and how all of that works. But it's that that's that period of time for those to either see family, spend time with family in England or in Israel, or for them to explore Israel. When they come back from that winter vacation, which is the start of January, we move into it's around a 1-month semester called Zman Yachad. During this time, there were several kind of like 1-week options that we provide the year courses. Some of those are optional, some of those are mandatory. And each year it depends on exactly how many there are. There's normally between 5 we've been having over the last few years, and which we expect to have again next year. But there may be a couple of changes from this, small changes from this. So one option is Sarel. Sarel is a volunteering opportunity in the army. So here, like year courses will go to an army base. And they will volunteer on that base. Normally, it's doing menial work. It's things like packing up equipment. It may be working in the dining room or the bakery or something like that at that army base. And it's basically being able to give themselves and to help the army with what they need at that time. So again, they'll go into uniform, and they'll also during that time there, they'll understand there'll be some supplementary education which is given in addition to the volunteering they do there, so they can understand a little bit about the army. But for like 1 week, they'll go to a base and they'll help and support the IDF with their needs in that week. Another option is a kibbutz experience. Again, we work with this kibbutz Keturah, which is down south, and it's not going there to like volunteer on the kibbutz as such, but it's going there to better understand kibbutz life, and also like maybe desert life as well. This kibbutz is in the desert, so it's about kind of like spending some time understanding how kibbutzim work, maybe doing some volunteering, but that's not the main focus of their role there, going out into the desert and the surrounding area and really getting to explore kibbutz life and desert life. Another option which is there is desert hiking and overnight camping. Because this takes place in January, it's normally hiking in the Elat Mountains. For weather reasons, that's because it's still normally nice weather and dry there at that time of the year. And it will be kind of spending the days hiking and spending the nights camping out, and doing that for a week and really getting to see Israel through using by walking Israel, and it's normally one of a very popular option that the year courses love, because they also really get to bond like very deeply during this period of time. Normally, the first week, there are SIUR-based elective seminars. So what I mean by that is, whilst they're still based in Tel Aviv, they will get to choose a seminar which has an educational theme, which every day they'll be going out and exploring that theme. So it may be the Israeli Arab community or the Haredi community or stories of the Bible or whatever that is, and every day they will leave their base in Tel Aviv and go on a trip and explore that theme in a little bit more detail to understand that community or to understand that part of history. So that's normally 1 week of there. The last week tends to be an orientation to, excuse me, an orientation to the Jerusalem, because that's where the group will be, heading to in the next semester. So there's normally a week exploring Jerusalem, some of the educational places there, and to also just understand what Jerusalem life will be like for them. So that's kind of like the Zaman Yacha period. Each week will have a slightly different theme. They'll go out and about around to different places in Israel and explore, have different experiences and explore different things. That's the base program. There are some other options which come at an additional price. So I will briefly go through these, but for anyone who would like more information, I'm more than happy to speak with you about this like individually or at another time. But there are currently 6 different options that we provide. I mean, it's not possible to do all of the options. There are some options which potentially you can do alongside each other. The first two, a trip to Rwanda for 2.5 weeks and a 10-day trip to Cambodia, they're both volunteer options. The one in Rwanda, actually, which is going on right now with our youth courses there right now, it's at the Agahozo Shalom Youth Village, which was a village which was set up after the Rwandan genocide, actually by an alum of the year course program, to help support orphans of the Rwandan genocide. Obviously, as many years later, it's not working with those children, those orphans, but it's still working with either other child orphans or with other children which, for whatever reasons, can't spend their time living with their families or etc. So it's be spending 2.5 weeks there in this youth village, volunteering, working with the village on lots of different projects, and we'll have 1 or 2 days as well going out and exploring Rwanda. That could be guerrilla trekking on one day, and it could be learning about the Rwandan genocide and going to the museum about that on another day. So that's the Rwanda trip. The Cambodia trip is a 10-day program. with our partners at the Jewish Agency in Project 10. We actually run another program for I don't know if anyone on this call, any of the children of people on the call may have been on our Netina program, which was our 10-day trip to Ghana, which we ran at the end of year 12. But with the same organization, with the Jewish Agency Project 10 that run that program, actually also have a center in Cambodia. And it basically, for those year courses who want to do that, can go to Cambodia for 10 days and be working with a local Cambodian community, helping to teach English and just, in delving a little bit more into that Asian culture. So those two are both volunteer options. The next four are or educational sightseeing program. So there's an 8-day program in Japan. This is the first year it's meant to happen. It hasn't happened before, so the year which are currently on the year course now will be the first year going through that. There's an 8-day trip to Morocco, an 8-day trip to Portugal, and a 6-day trip to Dubai. And in each of these places, they go and it's as I say, educational sightseeing. So they'll go and see some of the main sites where there are links to the Jewish community or links into Israel. They will explore those as well. But really, it's just an opportunity for people in their gap year to go and explore another culture, another country outside of Israel. As I said, if people choose one of these options, they come at additional costs. And they will be doing this instead of what we spoke about in the last slide in the Zaman Yachad period. For anyone who chooses not to do any of this or chooses just to do like one of a week-long option, they will do this, and surrounding that time, they will do what we saw in the last slide. So that's the Zaman Yachad section and the international travel options, which takes us up to around the beginning to middle of February, where the last semester kicks in, which is our Jerusalem studies semester. For this semester, we join up with the Machon L'Madrachei Chutz La'aretz program, which is a Jewish agency-run program, which has actually existed for decades. And the idea of this program is it takes young people from youth movements around the world to train them up to be the future leaders of their youth movement, of their community, both in wherever they are from the world and in Israel. And the way that it works is that, so it won't just be the FZY and Young Judea participants who will be on the Machon program at this time. Normally at the time of year that we do the program, there are people from the Southern Hemisphere, English-speaking countries from the Southern Hemisphere, places like Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, who are also from youth movements from those countries that will also join and will be a part of the program. And there are also sometimes from time to time, there are other British or other European youth movements as well, who also send their gap year participants to there. So it will be a larger group. It won't just be the 80 to 100 or so people who are there on the FZY Young Judea Year Course from that section. In addition, there is also a Spanish-speaking Machon program, which happens and runs, alongside the English-speaking one. There won't be that much overlap because of the language, but there will be probably somewhere between 150 to 200 people of the same age, normally from countries like Argentina and Mexico, who will be there at the same time, having an almost identical program. And there is some overlap, and certainly kind of like just as whilst on campus and all being together, there's lots of like social overlap there as well, which is really nice for the year courses to be able to really see and explore people from all over the world and all different cultures of people the same age as them. So the actual program itself, there are several like main themes. Like one theme is Israel and Zionism, exploring how the state of Israel came to be, and then delving into like the Israel of the last 75 years and today. Some of this will be some of this course will be like a core course to understand some basic core facts and figures and places and understanding the history, but also some of that will be options, electives as well. So some people may really like politics and want to delve into Israeli politics, or other people may be more interested in different communities that live in Israel, or Israeli society, or Israeli music, or Israeli art. So people can as well as like the core course, which will kind of like share the basic history and so everyone can understand that, they can explore Israel and Zionism in the way that they would best and most like to. There's a Hebrew Ulpan there, which will meet 4 times a week for about an hour, hour and a half each time. Again, to supplement, to add on to the Ulpan they would have done in Tel Aviv, and hopefully to add on to the Hebrew they would have learned throughout the first 4 or 5 months of the program. And so hopefully they'll be able to leave the program with a decent level of Hebrew if they invest in that, if they invest in it. There's a section of the weekly curriculum which looks at like Jewish concepts, and again there's lots of electives involved here, so year courses may want to delve into like the Jewish bookshelf and look at like different Jewish texts, whether that's biblical to the modern day. They may want to look at like Hasidism and explore that as a concept. They may want to kind of like look at like Jewish basic Jewish laws or Jewish rituals to kind of understand how they work. Again, there's a lot of choice here for them to explore their Judaism in a way which they feel they'll be able to connect to and is meaningful for them. The other core component of the curriculum is hadracha, is leadership, where it's a lot about training, as I said, training up these young people to be the future leaders of the youth movements and their communities, giving them vital leadership skills, communication skills, presentation skills, which will be useful for them when they go back to university, when they come back to their youth movements, and as they continue their life. They're the main themes within the curriculum. The other thing to mention are these things called la'omek, which I guess the best ways to describe them they're like these deep dive electives. So that twice a week, half a day, year courses will leave the campus, will leave Kiryat Moria, and will explore a theme that is really important to them. So that could be, for example, and there are many different options which are available here. So it could be, one of the options is the 3 monotheistic religions that have Jerusalem, hold Jerusalem as important to themselves, to their religion. So they could go out and different days they'll go to like the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, or they'll meet with an imam, or they'll meet with a Haredi community and a Reform community, or Jewish community, and they'll go to like they'll meet different people and explore different religious sites and understand like why, how their religion works, why Jerusalem is important to their religion, and what brings us to where we have there are similarities and where some of the challenges are maybe between these religions. There's a course, for example, like hidden neighborhoods of Jerusalem, and so every week they'll go out and they'll go and explore a different neighborhood in Jerusalem which maybe they've never been to before, and understand that community, that neighborhood, and to maybe meet some of the people who live there and to understand like how that neighborhood operates. They may want to like delve into things like the Holocaust, and they'll spend some time in Yad Vashem and other places doing different workshops and exploring the Holocaust through a variety of different ways. There's also courses, for example, like Israel advocacy, which a lot of the year courses like to do before they come back to university campuses where they feel they'll have to defend Israel and be Israel advocates on campus. So kind of like prepare them and get them ready for that process, and to kind of like teach them some more of the history, but also some of the skills that they may need to be able to advocate for Israel. So that's kind of like how the week is. So of the 5 days, they're kind of like the core subjects. Twice a week, as I said, they'll be off campus and they'll be going exploring some of these topics, through trips. And every Tuesday is known as Yom Tenuah, which is Movement Day, which means that, and as I said, there are lots of different movements and groups which come and form together to be on the Machon program. So once a week, they'll get into their own groups. So that will be either the FZY Year Courses will either get together as just the FZY group, or get together as the bigger Year Course group with their young Judea American counterparts who they spent the first 5 months with. And we'll go and again take them off site. And like we did in the Tel Aviv semester, where we were doing like Sirim trips around different places in Israel, we'll do the same thing again while they're in the Jerusalem semester. So like 3 of the 5 days of the week, they're off campus and they're really getting to see Israel and explore Israel in an educational way, through, from where, as much as possible, we want them to see things, because we can learn things in a classroom anywhere. So for us, it's as important. It's very important for us to be out in the field a lot. A couple of things to say about the classes as well. Like there's no homework. There's no exams. It's not the same. It's not a school setting that young people are probably used to for the last 14 years of having been in school. It's about learning for the sake of learning on subjects that we believe are important as young Jewish people to be learning about and delving into. And the teachers are all they're all kind of like have probably been on similar programs like this themselves when they were younger. It's all a lot of informal education. The teachers, you call them by their first name, and they're often like really there like as mentors for the young people. That's how the general semester works, but there are also 3 or 4 week-long seminars throughout this time. So in order to for 2 reasons. Sure that like the year courses won't get bored with like every day going to and a week after all. We mix it up with different seminars. So like the first week or when they're there, there'll be an orientation week. And so there'll be an orientation seminar, getting to know the staff, getting to understand the getting to meet each other, getting to know the campus in Jerusalem and different things like that. The next week, there's actually a seminar called Bereshit, which kind of like tries to look at like the early Jewish history, to kind of like take the year courses on a journey of like biblical times and leading up to maybe the beginning of the 20th century, so they can understand like what happened in like in more ancient Jewish history. And again, these seminars are out and about, so they may go to Masada and understand like the history there. They may go to the desert and understand kind of like a lot of the some of the biblical, the times of like Moses and walking in the desert. And I know it's not necessarily the same desert, but understanding kind of like some of that life and what happened and some of the history. They may spend a day in like the old city of Jerusalem and understanding biblical times and things like that. Then the rest of the other 3 or so seminars are dotted around, interspersed every few weeks. So one is Israeli Society seminar, where they go out and explore different parts of Israeli society. There's one which is just called an Israel seminar, to explore different communities and different cultures in Israel. And then there's also a Poland seminar as well. So for a week long, they will go head to Poland, which is all inclusive in the price of the program, and they'll go and explore the rich Jewish history that was there in Europe, and the decimation of that during the Holocaust. So the seminar, which runs for 12, 13, 14 weeks, something like that, will be interspersed by the regular classes and these different seminars which happen as well. So that's the Jerusalem semester, and that kind of takes us to the middle or so of May, when at that point we have a closing Sekum seminar. We bring all of the FZY Young Judea Year Course back together for a few days to reflect on the year, and to start that process of going home. So that what I've spoken about up till now has been the overview of the program, but there's really a lot more which comes into the program, which isn't there necessarily, which isn't specific. You can't see in a Tel Aviv Jerusalem semester and Zman Yachad. So I just want to touch on a few of those things now. We haven't mentioned weekends. So weekends is a big part of the year. Roughly speaking, one Shabbat every 4 is a closed weekend. What I mean by that, some of those will be just the FZY group together. Some of that will be the whole of that section together, like the roughly 80 to 100 people who are based in the same place together. And some of that will be the whole of the year course, which is maybe up to around 200 or so people together. And some of those will take them away. Some of those will be in their bases. But there will be everything that we do and run as a program is Shabbat friendly. But it will be a time like, so roughly 1 in 4 are closed weekends where we will run programming for them, and we'll keep them in a bubble, and to make sure that we're providing like different Shabbat experiences for them and bringing them together as a group. There are some year courses for the weekends which are not closed weekends, so roughly three out of every 4 weeks. The year courses are free to explore. Their base is there, whether that's in Jerusalem or whether that's in Tel Aviv. Their base is there for them. So if they want to have a quiet weekend, sleeping, catching up, on some sleep, or if they want to just explore Jerusalem or Tel Aviv where they are, they're welcome to do that. A lot of year courses also like to take this opportunity to explore different parts of Israel, and maybe also we can set them up with host families. if they want to. Some year courses like to do things like cycling around the Kinneret and other types of things as well. So this is like a great opportunity for them to do so. Normally, the weekend starts at the end of the day on Thursday when their classes of volunteering finishes. So normally 4, 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the evening on Thursday, that's when the weekend starts. And they need to be back in their classes of volunteering early Sunday morning. So that basically Friday, Saturday is the weekend, but you can try to get away on Thursday night if you want to, and return back early Sunday morning if they plan in advance. For those year courses which are looking for more closed closed Shabbatot, we do have a package called Road Trip with the Rabbi, which again is for a little extra cost, where we'll provide an additional 6 closed weekends for those people that want a more closed framework and organized framework on their Shabbatot. That is a possibility, and on that program, the rabbi in question is someone called Rabbi Adam Drucker. He's actually British originally, and he will go and take this group of people who want that to different communities and explore Shabbat in a different environment each Shabbat. So it might be a Shabbat in a city, maybe a Shabbat in a kibbutz, could be a Shabbat in the desert. Different Shabbat experiences for those people that are looking for that. There's obviously like the Jewish calendar, and every few weeks, every month or so, there's another Chag which is coming up. Obviously, this week we have Tu B'Shvat, which is coming up in the Jewish calendar. But like there are like some real highlights throughout the year, like days like Yom HaShoah, Yom HaZikaron, Yom HaTzmaut, which normally happen at the end of which happened at the end of the program, normally around April, May time. Like they're really, really meaningful days in Israel. To be here and to kind of like, especially Yom HaZikaron and Yom HaTzmaut, to spend the day mourning the loss of Israeli soldiers and victims of terror, and spending the day kind of like in like military cemeteries and things like that, to kind of like really kind of like understand what that day means to Israelis. And then kind of like the day finishes and goes straight into Yom HaTzmaut, and they're out on the streets having, street parties and with the rest of the country, and having barbecues, which is kind of like the cultural thing to do in Israel. Or it could be things like Purim, when you're walking along the street and everyone is dressed up in costumes, young people to old people. It may be on Yom Kippur, where the roads pretty much shut down. Even like the main motorways, there were just no cars on the road at all, and people could just walk across the motorways. And it's just a very powerful experience to be in Israel and some of like throughout the Jewish calendar, and seeing like a different way of experiencing these things. When it comes to all of the Chagim, for some of them we provide, like for all of them we provide options. There are always things that we are providing for the year courses for those that want it. We know that for some year courses they don't want to explore these things. For some year courses, they have family that they want to go and spend these Chagim with. But for those which don't have family, like we will always be providing different options which are there for them, whether that's meals, whether that's host families, whether that's doing services together, whether that's directing them towards different synagogues or different denominations so they can connect in a way that they want, and highlighting different ways that Israelis kind of like celebrate and commemorate each of these days. So that they're really powerful times. I've mentioned the Americans, Young Judea, but we haven't mentioned the Sofim. So now both in Tel Aviv and in Jerusalem, there are a group of around 8 to 12 Israelis of their own age in each of these places. So in total, there's around 16 to 24 Israelis of their own age who will be on the program. They'll be living with them. They'll be a part of the program with them. Their schedule is slightly different to the Brits and Americans who are on the program. They have to do a certain number. They're required to do a certain number of volunteer hours every week because they're in their gap year between school and the army. But they live together, and they run like normally once a semester. They'll run one of these day trips. Just actually last week or 2 weeks ago, they ran a day trip where they did like bow and arrow shooting and milking cows and doing all sorts of fun things. And like these Israelis of their own age, kind of like they become their extended family when they're in Israel. And they often invite them back to their homes for weekends, for Shabbatot, for the Chagim. And for all of these things, which is like a really unique and nice thing about our program, which kind of that doesn't exist really in many other programs. And there were so many other things. There are day trips. There are different hikes that we do normally throughout the Chol Hamoed Sukkot. We run a seminar often down in the south. Like there are loads of different things like that which are happening throughout the program, which are all happening interspersed within the main curriculum that I kind of like talk through. The last thing I want to speak about before I just go on to some of the technical things in terms of pricing and signing up and everything like that, and then open up to questions that people may have, um, is security, safety and security. It is always our number one priority. And obviously now more it's even not more than ever, but even like it's much more fresh on everyone's minds at the moment, unfortunately. Our program will change, will adapt, and if needs be, will be cancelled if based on security needs. What I would share with you is a little bit about what's happened this year, just so you can like understand the way that we operate the program, and to show you how like the safety and security really is kind of like the first thing and the number one thing that we're always thinking about. Immediately after like the terrible events of October 7th. We moved the group away from Tel Aviv and the center of the country. At that time, there were rockets which were coming towards Tel Aviv, and we moved the group actually to Kibbutz Keturah, which I mentioned a few times, which is near not about half an hour away from Eilat, which was a place where there weren't hearing any rockets, hearing any sirens. There were no rockets coming over. It was far away from all of the turmoil which was happening in many places around Israel. And they were there for 5 months, and we built volunteer programs. We for us, like it also needs to be a meaningful program. Like if we don't feel we can keep them safe and we can't provide something meaningful, that's when we would close down the program. But for us, it needs to tick both of those boxes. Obviously, the safety is the most important, and then after that, we look for the meaningful options. And as I said, if we can't provide both of those, that's when we'll shut down the program. But on the volunteering, they did a lot of volunteering. They would volunteer with a lot of displaced families. A lot of them were moved to displaced families from the north and from the south. Were moved to places like Eilat, so they would go into Eilat and work with the families there. There were a lot of people on the kibbutz who were either called up to the army or some foreign workers that left the country, and so there was a lot of agricultural work to be doing on the kibbutz. So we built a rich program for them during the 5 weeks or so that they were there. And when things calmed down and things were safer again in the center of the country, then we moved them back to the center of the country again. They had for a short period of time, they also had a curfew imposed upon them, not because things are necessarily less safe at 1 o'clock in the morning than they would be in 1 o'clock in the afternoon, but because we know that at 18, 19 years old in the evening, year courses may be more tendent to go and drink alcohol and things like that. And we wanted to make sure that people will have their wits about them the whole time, and they would be, if there was ever a need to react to any situation, they would be able to do that. So like we will change the location of where year courses are. We will change their program. We will change the rules based on everything that is going on in a situation. My real hope is that by the time year course starts in September, this or end of August, beginning of September this year, that there won't be a need for any additional restrictions to what our regular restrictions are. But should that be the case and should things need to adapt, then we will do that, and we'll do that immediately. Just so you know, there were a lot of year courses which did leave the country at that time as well. I think we started a program with 185 between FZY and Young Judea. I think the lowest number we went down to was 65. I think today just under 180 of them are back. I think only 4 people actually left the program entirely in its entirety, and nearly every single person, well into like the high 90% are back. Every single FZY person, everyone who came from Britain is back. There's just a handful of Americans which haven't returned yet. And so that's that, and that's so I think that also shows from a parent perspective, that there is trust in the program that we are running, and that we can provide safe and meaningful programming, even during very difficult, challenging, tumultuous times that there have been over the last few months here in Israel. Okay, so the last slide that I'll touch on is costs and scholarships, and then I will remove the slideshow, and we'll have an opportunity for people to ask any questions they may have. So the price of the program, the early bird price of the program is £22,999. The early bird deadline is currently next week, but we are looking because of this was an early bird deadline we put in place actually before October 7th. So we are looking to maybe extend that early bird deadline by a couple of weeks to because we did launch our program later than we had expected to. And we know that some people may need just a little bit more time to consider that. But the early bird deadline currently is standing at the 31st of January, but we'll probably be pushing that back like a couple of weeks, and we will inform you, if and when that does change. The regular program cost, if you apply after the early bird deadline, is £23,499. After the 14th of May, we can't guarantee availability anymore on the program because that's around the time in the middle of May where the current year course program is wrapping up, and in Israel they're already like sorting out all the logistics towards the next year's program, which includes hiring staff, like signing rentals on accommodation and different things like that. So at that point, like it may not be as easy to bring people who are like want to sign up later onto the program. And there's also a £200 surcharge at that time because things can become more expensive if we're not like sorting things out in advance as well. So that's the pricing. We do have a very clear policy that everyone should be able to go on the year course program regardless of their financial need. We recognize that year course is an expensive program. We know that. Look, we also know that spending a year in university is also expensive once you include the tuition fees and for those people that are living away from the family home, the accommodation and the food and everything that goes with it. We recognize that that's also expensive, and it's probably not massively different in terms of like a like-for-like cost. But we recognize that it is an expensive program, and we recognize not everyone can afford it. So we work with different organizations who help to support FZY and help to support year course families to be able to go onto the programs. The three that we work with most closely are the Friends of FZY, which is a charity which is linked to us. They provide needs-based bursaries, and also they have an interest-free loan scheme as well for those people that may want to be able to pay things off over several months. So that's something that they offer. Masa is an Israeli governmental organization linked in with the Jewish Agency, and then umbrella organization which try to bring as many people to long-term immersion programs in Israel as possible. They provide a $200 universal scholarship, which is built into the cost of the program. I know that's not a huge amount of money, and it's already built into the price of the program, but they also provide additional needs-based funding, and they often are able to provide several $1,000s or pounds for those families which need it. And then there's the UJIA as well, the largest British Israel charity. Raises money towards Israeli causes, and also Jewish Israeli education within like the youth sector as well in the UK. They also provide need-based funding as well. So they're like with those three organizations and working with individual families, and all of these things are done on a case-by-case basis. And confidentially, we have one person on our staff who will work and support you through this process. Our intention is that everyone will be able to make the program if there is a real financial need. Now, also depending on where you live and what shul you go to and which community you're part of, there are synagogues and local councils which often offer money for these grants for these types of trips. There are other trust funds which are available as well, depending on again where you come from often. And again, we'll try and work with people in order to help them get on the program if finance is it potentially could be a hindrance to that. So I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop the sharing, and I think I'm actually going to stop recording at this point as well. And what we'll do is, so we can open up a chance for if anyone has any questions, they can do so without necessarily this part of the thing being recorded.